Hi, my name's Anthony Darkson,
And I'm Roland Shadow.
and together we are Twin Dragons. Welcome to our channel where we discuss everything tabletop role-playing games. Today we're welcomed by a special guest, Daniel. Welcome, sir.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be on here. I've been watching your show since the beginning, and I've just been really excited to get on here, and so appreciate the invite.
Awesome. Big fan.
Yeah, big fan.
Disclaimer, Daniel's actually a longtime player and game master that we've had in our group for a very long time.
We invited Daniel today to be a guest speaker as we're going to go through some general discussions around being a game master and things that we have to face. And utilizing Daniel's very long experience as a game master, I thought it would be great to invite him and kind of get his perspective and thoughts. So if you guys feel good, let's get started.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. First, let's kind of get to know your origin when it comes to playing role-playing games. So, Daniel, talk about how did you get into role-playing games?
Yeah, my story is going to be pretty recognizable for most people. I always kind of wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, like those types of games, and I'd see the books and Barnes and Noble and things like that, and loved fantasy, loved reading The Hobbit and the Drizzt stories and things like that, and always wanted to cut my teeth on D&D. So started with D&D 3.0, which kind of ages me a little bit. Transitioned to 3.5, played D&D 3.5 for a while. I was about 50% game master, 50% player. And then as I got older, I realized that as much as I loved being a player, that was where my creativity really started to go. And I've just been running games for 20 plus years now and having a blast of all sorts of different systems.
That's awesome, man.
So what's your favorite system?
Ooh.
Is that ahead in my head?
No, you're good, man.
See, for me, I really love a lot of different types of systems depending on what type of game that people are vibing with and things like that. Right, I would have to say overall my favorite was actually made by Fantasy Flight Games. It was the Star Wars role-playing game, which they then turned into a generic system called Genesis. A lot of people got turned off by it because it uses even funkier than normal dice with symbols on them instead of numbers. But I really love the blend of crunchy mechanics-based play with narrative and improvisational style play. It made a really good blend that I had a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun running.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shoot out a question. Thinking about being a game master and some of the things that we have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things is preparation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you usually prepare for a session?
So for me, I've kind of gone across the spectrum. Sometimes I will do almost no prep and fly by the seat of my pants. Sometimes I will completely over prep and have a notebook filled with really detailed notes. Where I find my sweet spot is, and this is sort of what I recommend to a lot of people in a lot of different creative fields as a hobby, is I prep until it stops being enjoyable prepping, and then I do a little bit more after that. That's kind of the sweet spot for me. So if I'm really enjoying the creative process and I'm prepping a whole bunch and I'm really enjoying it, then I can get pages and pages. But if I'm just not feeling it, if I just do a little bit, that's fine. But my main goal, I think, is to make sure that I come to the table prepared enough to know how I want the session to begin. And any of my blind spots that I am not good at improving, I try to fill in the gaps with prep beforehand.
I'm like that too. I truly love preparing because that is the part of the creative process. I totally love that. I think that, just like you said, I like to prepare to the point of where, it's just enough and then push just a little bit more just so I get that little extra in. I really jive with that. So,
Yep.
I love that. Everyone's different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some game masters out there will prepare for every contingency and like, and then some are just like throw preparation to the wind and they just love living on the side of their pants. But I love the way you said it, where you prepare enough until you feel like it's too much of a grind. Then you just a little bit more. I love that piece of it because you want to make sure you're there, but you don't do it to the extent where you're just burning yourself out with the preparation. So I love that, man. Well said.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and from my perspective, anyway, like it is a hobby. Like we're all here to have fun, and I think one of the biggest consequences, or one of the biggest causes of GM burnout, whenever you're just been running game after game after game after game, and you're just creatively drained, it stops being fun, and it starts feeling like work, and we don't ever want that to happen. And I think that happens whenever you feel like you have to do certain things. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, players definitely don't feel that way. They come in there, they're ready to snack on some chips and roll some dice and throw 90% of your prep into the drain on purpose, just to get a rise out of you. Or is that just my experience?
No, that's everybody. Players have no respect for your preparation at all. No respect.
Man, I think it's we create that borderline between player agency and just letting them do what they need to do, even though inside we hurt and cringe when our plans get burned to the ground after that time preparing for it. But that's what it's about, man. That's what being a game master is all about. So
For sure. I feel like the game masters should feel just as surprised playing the game as the other players do. You've got your secrets and you've got your plans and machinations, but being able to just be genuinely surprised by, I did not expect that player to do that thing right then. I totally forgot that they, of course, had, a magic item that would turn them ethereal and let them, walk through half the dungeon, It just happens,
Oh yeah. Yeah, as a game master, it's fun and exciting to create these things. And then at the same time, it's fun and exciting to see it all burn to the ground.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And then you can say, all right, players, I'm taking you with me.
That's true.
Speaking of creating, do you prefer homebrewing or do you prefer pre-made modules?
When I was younger, I definitely preferred homebrewing for sure. When I started playing, that's immediately what I started thinking. Like, I want to start making adventures. Now, when I say homebrew, what I really mean is ripping off my favorite books, movies, television shows, and maybe like swapping some vowels in the characters' names, but otherwise, doing that. And so I was not nearly as creative as I thought I was in my teens, but I definitely had a lot of fun doing that. As I've gotten older, and as the time commitment, I just don't have the same amount of time I did when I was a teenager in my early 20s to just, prep and come up with all these character and story ideas. Now I'm kind of gravitating to more of a hybrid approach where, like, the central part of my game is still very much my own, but I will absolutely steal a scene from this adventure path or this character from this whatever, and sort of mix and match it and put it together. I'm like, I need a dungeon, this haunted mansion from Curse of Strahd will fit perfectly here. I'm just gonna shove it in and it'll work out just fine, and I don't have to worry about like drawing out the maps and getting the rooms just right if I can just insert these things like pieces of Lego. That seems to be what's worked well for me too. And as long as the other players either haven't played that adventure before, or I swap out the vowels enough, they usually don't catch on. So
I love that. It gives a lot of flexibility, right? Mm-hmm. Flexibility not just with creativity, but also time, right? Because as obviously you said before, as our adult years have come up, we just don't have the time that we would really love to invest into our stories. But that's such a great way of actually handling it.
I think one of the great things I love about that approach is it also helps when you're experiencing mid-campaign burnout or creative roadblocks by then dropping in pre-made modules into your campaign, it helps kind of alleviates your creative burnout. So this way gives you more time, and you're running these pre-made modules into your campaign. So your players continue to have fun. You keep moving, progressing things forward. Consider them side quests, if you will,
Right.
while you're still kind of bringing yourself out of that moment of creative roadblock. So yeah, absolutely.
It feels less bad if I don't use a pre-made module because the players decided to take a hard left turn than if I spent hours and hours crafting the perfect dungeon only for the party to say, actually, we're going to go on the other side of the map to do something completely different because you happen to come up with an NPC that said, oh, well, the mountains of Icespire are really unusually warm this year. Why did I even say that? What was I thinking? And so now I got to come up with why there's a dragon there, I guess, because that's what I'm doing.
So, another thing I was curious about, how do you handle player engagement at the table? I know that sometimes for me it's hard to really keep everybody wrangled in to pay attention to what's going on. How do you handle that, sir?
Yeah, so that can be really tough because players come from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, experienced, inexperienced, love role play, hate role play, never done it before, been doing it for 40 years. There's definitely a spectrum there, right? I would say for me, a lot of it is letting go a little bit and saying, look, I'm not going to be able to keep every player's attention 100% of the time. And that's okay. I think sometimes we feel that we've got to keep everybody's attention and keep everybody engaged 100% of the time. But the reality is that's actually can be really exhausting for players too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes players just need to take a step back and breathe, and they're happy to let the spotlight be on different players or a different part of the story for that section of it. And I think if you try to please everyone all the time, it kind of comes off as it can be a little bit too intense, especially for newer players who I don't really want to be in the spotlight right now. And they'll kind of slink off to the back or whatever. But in my experience, what I try to do is I try to keep an eye on the subtle symbol, body language and things like that, where when people perk up or when they're drifting to their phone, when they're fiddling with their dice or whenever they're leaning in, and sort of paying attention to that. And if I see a player really starting to hook into whatever I'm presenting, I'll maybe embellish it or lean into that a little bit more. And maybe I'll ask follow-up questions how does, Xanathar the Bold feel about, this scenario or whatever? And then kind of prompt them to see where they feel about it. But if players are just kind of lounging back and not getting too engaged in it, and they just don't seem like they're into it, I'll oftentimes hear from them oh, I had a great time, I had a blast, I had a lot of fun. And so I try not to put too much pressure on player engagement, but I do try to keep my eyes open for all the body language and things like that.
It's one of the tough things that as a game master, when you're having to balance so much in the moment, when different things happen, different dynamics, different situations, and you're dealing with the different personalities and temperaments of your players, to be able to balance that does take a lot of experience and practice. Sometimes when you have that quiet player, like you said, you can, ask them a question. I love that, where, hey, how do you feel about this situation? What do you think you should do, or we should do in this situation, or y'all should do, right? So getting them, just kind of pulling them in a little bit, just seeing if they respond. Maybe they had something to think about. Maybe they did have a great idea. They didn't want to say it because they were worried that, the rest of the team's going to feel oh, that's not a great idea, right? But helping them, encouraging them to bring it out a little bit, it helps, right? And then sometimes, like you said, they didn't contribute at all, but at the end, and you ask them how it went, and they were super excited. They loved it. I'm like, okay, well, cool, it just worked out, right? So, it's all about that balance. It takes experience and time to get there, but, it's a balanced approach.
For sure, yeah. I mean, just get to know your players, I think is a big part of it. knowing who they are, generally speaking, who the character is that they're playing. If you can pull stuff from their backstory or stuff like that, a lot of players will just absolutely lap that up. You just pull some little thread from their backstory, and a super disengaged player will all of a sudden be like, "Oh, it's about me now. Oh, I'm into this. Tell me all about how my tragic backstory about growing up as an orphan matters in this scene right now." And that all of a sudden that can flip them 180, 100%. So,
Love that.
but well, I mean, I know I've played in both of y'all's games at different times,
And we played in yours.
and we played in mine. And one of the cool things that I think that you do, Roland, is you do a pretty good job of keeping the table pretty well, like, on task at whatever is mattering the most right now. You'll let us sort of like pull the threads in different directions, but we do still feel like we're headed, there's strong momentum in the direction that, at least at the table, feels like we're staying on track to where your prep was leading to. Now, you may just be really good at improvising when things go sideways, but you do a pretty good job of keeping that vibe. And I think that is also an important piece of it too, is it's okay to be vulnerable and let your players know if you're feeling overwhelmed. But like, if you can conceal it a little bit to keep up the illusion, that can go a long way.
I know exactly what I'm doing.
I know exactly. This was all planned months in advance.
Wait a second, Daniel. So when you break my game and coming up with these crazy ideas, and you make me struggle, is you doing that on purpose or what?
I give as much as I receive.
That also is being ready for ambiguity to whatever your players throw at you, right? Especially the more seasoned players who have been known to provide hijinks. Just being ambiguous and be ready to be fluid, be ready to change and move is important. So that's a skill I'm still working on, but definitely Roland is really good at it for sure.
I think Anthony, he's being a little modest, right? So I know, I feel like you allow the players, which is probably your style, you allow the players to do more of what they want, and you just let it ride. I think that you're letting it ride is actually you just being more spontaneous and creative, where you can do things. You can just say, hey, you know what, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Fine, now we're gonna make this happen, right? So I think you're better at that, right? Like, I might be able to pull them little threads to keep them going in the same direction. You're like, you want to go there? All right, let's go there. So I think you're better at that.
I think for me, it's just player agency and allowing the players to just be creative. One of the things that I'm really working on is the yes, but. Yes, you can do that, but there may be consequences. We can do that, and I'll just have to figure something else next session and how to deal with that. Sure, but to me, the players need to be fully vested in their character, what their character would do, and not just shut them down because, like, hey, that's something their character would do, then just let them do what their character would do.
Yeah.
You just got to figure it out as a DM and kind of work with it, either be in the moment or like, hey, I'll have to figure that out next session.
Yeah.
But it truly allows the players to feel like they're a part of something.
Yes.
So
100%. I agree. And that's, again, one of the things I really enjoy in your games, Anthony, is like you tend to lean more toward the sandboxy style, I feel, where you're like, hey, you want to go in this direction? Yeah, there's some stuff on the map. Let's go there. Let's figure out what's there, And you do a good job of letting people feel like, if they've got a really wild, creative solution that's totally out of the box, you'll definitely lean into that. I remember when you ran Eberron, there were a lot of times when we kind of turned the airship, so to speak, in directions that might have been a little bit sideways, but you rolled with it,
Yeah,
That's an interesting map. Let's go there.
There you
You're
go.
like, what?
I was not prepared for the idea of, obviously it's Eberron, they have flying ships. I didn't think about you would have the idea of, hey, let's just get a flying ship. And I'm like, man, I had this whole plan for y'all to actually trek the journey to get to this location, but yeah, sure, let's get the airship. Now, granted, how I dealt with that afterwards is that after you got to your location, I had a group of thieves steal your airship.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
There's a solution to every problem.
There's a solution to every problem.
Yeah.
Especially for dungeon masters.
Got you to where you wanted to go,
Yeah.
took that airship back.
And honestly, left us with a pretty good plot thread because we were all like, we're gonna find these guys, these people, and we're gonna get them.
We're gonna get that shit back. Which then ended up being a group that you ended up fighting later on as a enemy. So it's just how you kind of bring things back together.
Yeah. And I think that also brings up a good piece of it too. Is you don't have to have all of the answers in that moment. You can definitely sort of roll with it in the moment, and then let things take whatever shape they're going to take, and then you can come back and conclude it and have it all make sense after you've had a few weeks to prep and come up with how you're going to put those pieces together. And that's totally fine too, and you can still make it feel all seamless. So
So I know you were earlier. You said something about taking ideas and characters from other stories and stuff like that. But when you think about memorable NPCs, right, in the process of trying to create those NPCs, what's kind of your process with that? Like, what kind of process do you have for not just the NPCs, but also like create story ideas and hooks and things like that you try to bring into your campaigns?
I think a lot of it for me is just not being afraid to steal from my favorite books, television
it's called inspiration,
shows.
not stealing. It's inspiration.
It's inspiration. But I will. What helps for me is like the cool thing about tabletop role-playing games is most of the games are naturally sort of a blend of lots of different genres. And so you can absolutely take characters from science fiction and throw them in a fantasy setting, or throw characters from a noir mystery and put them in science fiction. And you can, tweak them to that it all makes sense, but it's totally cool to kind of rip off from as many sources as you like and mix and match. And for me, one of the things that I found works well when making a memorable NPC is making sure that they have a clear goal and motivation. As long as I know what it is as the game master, even if it's a mystery to the players, if I know what it is, then I can use that to guide the NPC so that that NPC feels like they've got an agenda, they've got agency, they're a player, so to speak, in the story as much as the players are, because they've got goals and aspirations and things like that. And as long as I've got a clear vision of what that character wants, then that character really starts coming alive. Because if you have characters that are NPCs that are mostly reactionary to the player, just use a basic example. Like, let's say you've got a generic bartender in a tavern, right? If the players start doing, crazy shenanigans, and then a basic thing might be, well, the bartender is going to, get upset and yell at the players or call the guards or whatever. And, then that just sort of becomes sort of generic reactionary antagonist character. But if in that moment I'm like, okay, this person's, owns a tavern, but maybe they were an adventurer in the past life, right? Maybe they opened this tavern because they wanted to have a peaceful life and they're done with the adventuring days, right? But maybe they see a younger version, they see themselves in the players and the characters, and they're like, oh, okay. And maybe they sort of come up and they sort of like a jolly attitude, and they're like, hey guys, I can totally see that you're having a lot of fun swinging off the chandeliers and then maybe regale them of a story of a time that they were adventurers too, and then all of a sudden that character feels more real, more personable, and they have a very real motivation. Hey, I don't care if you guys are going to be a little rambunctious. I was that way too, but if you're going to break that chandelier, I'm going to make you pay for it. And maybe they know that the best way to inspire a lot of adventurers is give them something to do, right? And maybe give them a task or some sort of quest, and then who knows, maybe you now just have improved a new story hook that you can sort of fold out, you can sort of unpack there. But I think the most important thing is making sure that the NPC that you're playing has some sort of belief or agency, some sort of goal or agenda, and then if you just make their choices and their reactions naturalistic to that, then that character feels more real, and they don't just feel like they're oppositional. And you'll surprise them by like, I expected this guard to hate my guts, but actually, maybe they don't. I expected this NPC to fall in love with me because I rolled a high charm check, and it's like, no, actually, that's not going to happen because this character is a real person that you're really engaging with, and real people don't just fold the second you roll nat 20. You know, and I think making sure they have real agency plays into that.
I think you also added in kind of relatability. Mm-hmm. Making your NPC relatable allows the players to really connect with them in a different way. You mentioned like the tavern keeper used to be an adventurer, just like they're an adventurer now, right? So they can understand and relate to where they're coming from. So I think that's a great perspective and thing to add into your NPCs.
You know what? What I really got out of that was take a fantasy character, or take a sci-fi character, put him in a fantasy. I just thought James D. Kirk, pirate captain.
Yep.
On the sea voyage.
Yep.
There's my adventure.
Yep.
There's my next one. There's my next one.
Yep. Absolutely. And I know some people, other people what they like to do is they like to just say, like, if this character were in a movie, who would play them? You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, okay, Shatner is playing this pirate captain, and you've got a voice, you've got mannerisms, you've got a basic like character outline, and then you can just sort of roll with that. And
a funny Easter egg for the players, the ones that know.
Yeah, exactly.
So bringing in voices. Mm-hmm. And sound effects, like to really flesh out your NPC. Do you do that? Do you do the inflections, the voices, the accents? Like, how do you utilize that, or do you utilize that?
I do to a certain extent. I know some people are really, really good at it, and they're natural voice actors, or that might even be their background. Like, a lot of the really famous, dungeon masters, by no surprise, have a real life background, like Matt Mercer and Brennan Lee Mulligan. Like, they've got these backgrounds in theater that they absolutely leverage. But the reality is, most people don't have that background. Most people do not have great range, and that's totally okay because we're all just friends playing around a table. So letting myself be open to be silly and make a bad voice and just sort of being okay with it, but also being like, I think one of the classic pitfalls is if you're a guy and you're trying to do a voice for a female character, all of a sudden you take it up a bunch of octaves, but you really don't have to do that. Sometimes that makes sense, and that's totally fine, but it's okay to be like, okay, yeah, the waitress comes to your table and asks, what food you want to eat, and I think narrating in third person helps a lot with that too. Mm-hmm. Kind of takes some of the pressure off. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be first person in person all the time either. And so play to your comfort level. Don't be afraid to be silly, and don't feel like you have to use a voice to make a character distinct.
And you bring up, you make me think about, and you bring up a good point. Does every dwarf have to be Scottish? Do they have to be?
No, but it helps.
It does. It does. I mean, it is a classic trope for a reason, and everybody's got a bad Scottish accent. We all sound like Groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons.
That's true.
Or Sean Connery. You kind of end up in that range.
That is true. Hey, you use what you know, all right? I'm just saying.
Or Mike Myers from Shrek, you know.
I can think usually when I try that, that's the way it usually goes. It's usually Shrek.
Even if you're not great at it, and you try hard, but even if it comes out silly, your players are going to appreciate it regardless, because they're going to have fun with it. They're just your friends and family for the most part. They'll have fun, even if it's, sounds very tropey, even if it sounds silly. Try it. Have some fun with it.
When I'm introducing the game to new players who are maybe really nervous about being at a table and being a little silly at the table, they almost are like afraid to speak up because they have like stage fright in a sense. One of the first things I love to do is introduce the most ridiculous, bombastic character I can. I will absolutely step forward and be the silly one first and be the ridiculous one first. And then, after we all have a laugh about it and we realize it doesn't, nobody's going to make fun of anyone here, that sort of breaks the ice in a really big way. And then they're like, oh, okay, it's okay to be a little silly. It's okay to be a little bit sideways. And everybody just kind of feels cool because they won't be able to match my ridiculous, out of insane character. And so that character, maybe it's a bartender, maybe it's a drunk guard, maybe it's, who knows what it is. Yeah. But, just introducing someone really bombastic to really break the ice helps a lot with that stuff.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us on our show for this episode. We really appreciate your insight and input and your perspective.
Thanks so much. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking about the role-playing hobby. I know he's focused a lot on Dungeons and Dragons and things like that because it's such a big thing, but really the tabletop role-playing genre is so huge. I really invite everyone to get out there, experiment, be a little silly. There's a lot to enjoy about this hobby. So,
well, thank you so much for actually joining us. Comment down below, everyone. Let us know about your perspectives and ideas on the topics that we talked about today.
If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe as we have more content coming out soon. Until then, see you next time.